The increasing rent had become a relentless burden on my shoulders. I knew I had to find another apartment, and with my little brother Rex in tow, it wasn't just about me anymore. Our parents were back in our hometown, attending to the family farm, leaving us to fend for ourselves in the city. One day, while surfing rental listings online, I stumbled upon a unit in an apartment complex. The rent was unbelievably low, almost like a steal. So I arranged to meet Mr. Johnson, the agent, who greeted us in the lobby with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. His warm welcome did little to dispel the growing sense of unease in my gut. Mr. Johnson led us inside, and right as we walked in, there it was. This grand old staircase, like something out of a vintage movie. The concierge desk sat there, all lonely with papers scattered around and a phone that hadn't rung in ages. Off to the side was the elevator, kind of rickety but still functional. You couldn't help but wonder how many stories it held within its creaky walls. I couldn't help but feel like I'd stepped into a time warp. Sunlight barely trickled in through a window partially blocked by a neighboring building, casting eerie shadows that crept across the floor. We explored the small apartment unit, which consisted of 2 bedrooms, one small enough for Rex, a compact kitchen, a dining area, and a space for a couch. One solitary bathroom completed the setup. My eyes landed on an ominous stain on one of the bed mattresses, its size and shape sending shivers down my spine. It was a grotesque sight, but I brushed off my unease, convincing myself it was just a minor issue. Now, here's the thing. While the building itself seemed like it had seen better days, this unit was like a shiny, modern oddball. Mr. Johnson was quick to explain that it had undergone some renovations, hence the sleek, out-of-place design. It had a sort of European flair with some of its fancy fixtures and contemporary wallpaper. "So, is this one of those recently spruced-up places?" I asked, trying to wrap my head around the peculiar mix of old and new. Mr. Johnson nodded, his poker face holding steady. "Absolutely. One of our little modern gems within this historic shell." Rex, who'd been quietly taking everything in, tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Lucy, this place gives me the creeps." I couldn't help but agree with him. The unnatural juxtaposition of modernity within the old building was disorienting, but rent prices were skyrocketing, and this place was a budget-friendly lifeline. So despite the unsettling vibes, I took the plunge. Mr. Johnson handed me the keys, and as we parted ways, his eyes hinted at secrets he couldn't spill. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just signed up for more than I'd bargained for. Little did I know, this quirky apartment, casual and eerie all at once, would soon become the stage for a series of inexplicable events that would test the boundaries of my courage and sanity. The initial weeks in the unit seemed pretty uneventful. I mean, there were the usual creaks and groans that come with an old building, but nothing to write home about. Life was chugging along, and Rex and I were making the best of our new, albeit peculiar home. Then, like a slow leak in the ceiling, weird stuff began to happen. At first, it was little things, faucets and showers that turned on all by themselves. I figured it was just plumbing acting up, maybe a ghost with a penchant for hygiene. You know, the usual. But then the TV started playing mind games. One evening, it just flickered to life, changing channels without any human touch. I thought maybe the remote was acting up, but it was sitting peacefully on the coffee table, far from prying fingers. Then came the real kicker. Glasses began to slide off the dining table, as if an invisible hand was giving them a nudge. That was hard to explain away. I tried to blame it on uneven floors, but deep down, I knew something was off. One night, I was yanked from sleep by a rapping on the door. It was unmistakable, like someone was desperate to get in. Heart pounding, I tiptoed to the door, dread clawing at me. But when I flung it open, there was no one there. Just a long, eerie hallway stretching into darkness. I rubbed my temples, convinced I was losing my mind. Maybe it was stress or exhaustion. But Rex's frightened eyes and his trembling voice as he told me he'd heard someone whispering in his room shattered that illusion. The apartment was playing tricks on us, and it wasn't done yet. The casual facade I'd tried to maintain was unraveling, replaced by a gnawing unease that refused to let go. Something was definitely not right in our new home, and I couldn't explain it away any longer. Life in our new apartment had taken a decidedly strange turn. One Sunday, as I was going about my business. I heard Rex's voice drifting from his room, as if he was deep in conversation with someone. My heart twisted in my chest as I inched closer, only to find an empty room, devoid of any companions. "Rex, who were you talking to?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of curiosity and dread. Rex turned to me, his eyes wide and innocent. "My new friend Lucy. He's really nice." My skin crawled, but I put on a brave face, convincing myself it was just a child's imagination running wild. "That's great, buddy. Just make sure he's a good friend, okay?" But that night, as I lay in my bed, the atmosphere grew heavy, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then, out of nowhere, a hushed whisper brushed against my ear, sending shivers down my spine. I bolted upright, scanning the room, but there was no one there. "Who's there?" I stammered, my voice quivering. No reply, just the deafening silence of my dimly lit room. The next morning, Rex's frightened face confirmed my fears. He told me about the figure he had seen standing in the corner of his room, a shadowy presence that defied explanation. "Lucy, there was someone in my room," Rex whispered, his eyes haunted. My heart ached for him, but I had no answers to give. "It's all right, Rex. Maybe it's just a dream." But it wasn't just a dream. One day, as I lounged in the living room, I watched in shock as a dark, shapeless shadow moved gracefully across the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs as I leaped to my feet and rushed over to investigate. There was nothing there, just an empty room mocking my fear. Every night, the apartment seemed to tighten its grip on us, its casual, eerie facade giving way to something far more sinister. It happened on a night like any other, or so I thought. I woke up in the middle of the night, my bladder urging me to make a hasty trip to the bathroom. As I emerged from my room, my groggy eyes landed on Rex's door, and my heart nearly leaped out of my chest. It was wide open. My first instinct was to assume he'd wandered out for a late-night snack or a glass of water. But when I peeked inside his room, my panic surged. The bed was empty. "Rex!" I called out, my voice trembling as I scanned the apartment. Silence echoed through the dimly lit space. No response. My mind raced, my heart pounding in my chest as I tried to quell the rising terror. I rushed to the front door, which was slightly ajar. A frigid draft swept over me, and a chill snaked down my spine. Fear gripped me as I stepped out into the hallway, calling Rex's name in frantic desperation. There, standing alone in the dim light, was Rex, his small form silhouetted by the eerie glow of the elevator. I approached him, my voice quivering as I asked, "Rex, what are you doing here at 2 a.m.? He turned to me, his eyes wide with bewilderment. "I don't know, Lucy. I just woke up here." My hands trembled as I took him, guiding him back into our apartment. That night, Rex didn't return to his room. He slept in mine, clutching my hand as we both struggled to understand the inexplicable events that had turned our new home into a place of eerie uncertainty. My growing unease had finally snowballed into genuine worry. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Something was seriously off about our new apartment. It was more than just odd occurrences. It felt like we were living in the pages of a horror story. The next morning, I knew I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. I had to reach out for help. I called my mother, her familiar voice on the other end providing a small, reassuring lifeline. "Mom," I began hesitantly, my voice trembling. "I need to tell you something strange that's been happening in our new apartment." There was a pause on the other end, and then she responded, her voice tinged with concern. "What's going on, Lucy? Tell me." So I spilled it all. The faucets turning on, the whispering in the night, the bizarre shadows, Rex's odd behavior, and the inexplicable incident by the elevator. It all poured out, and as I spoke, the weight of it seemed to hang in the air, even through the phone line. My mother, superstitious by nature, didn't take long to respond. "Lucy, you need to get out of there. Find another apartment, no matter what it takes. Rex can stay with me until you do." It was the affirmation I needed, the confirmation that I wasn't just losing my mind. I thanked her and hung up, my mind buzzing with a mix of relief and dread. With a heavy heart, I packed up our belongings, determined to leave behind the eerie apartment that had become a living nightmare. Rex would be safe with our mother, and I would search for a new place to call home, one without the ominous shadows and unexplained phenomena that had plagued us in that cursed unit.
I ended up here kinda accidentally, just a temporary guard for this super creepy apartment building. They slapped me with a 2-week gig, filling in for the guard who got sick. I had no clue that these 2 weeks would mess with my head so badly. I walked through these ancient, creaky doors, and right away, this heavy feeling, like a major bummer, just settled on me. The lobby was all dim, and there was this chandelier flickering like it had a ghost of its own. The walls used to be fancy, I guess, with all these intricate designs, but now they just looked tired, all faded and dingy. Over on one side, there was this front desk, old as the hills, dark wood all scratched up like it had seen way too much action. It was like a relic from a time I couldn't even imagine. To my right, there was this grand staircase, but it was like super worn down and looked kinda spooky. The banisters were all twisted and weathered, and I swear that staircase had secrets of its own, like it had seen some crazy stuff go down. On the other side, there was this old, clunky elevator, a total behemoth with a million buttons and levers. It was waiting there like it knew something I didn't. Like it was in on some big secret. This whole building was like a time warp, you know? Some parts were all spiffed up with fresh paint and shiny floors, but then you'd turn a corner, and it was like, whoa, the fire scars were still there, like the building itself was holding on to its past. And those flickering lights, they cast these super creepy twisted shadows on the walls, like they had a life of their own. So like, everything got seriously weird one night when I was doing my rounds, just chillin', with my footsteps echoing in the hallways. And then, there it was, the elevator. This thing was like a metal dinosaur, all old and creaky, and it made this super creepy groaning noise as its doors opened and shut. Seriously, it sounded like the elevator itself was crying out in agony. But here's the kicker, no one was inside. It was just empty. I figured maybe it was a tech glitch or something, so I was like, okay, let's take this baby for a spin. So I hit the button for the ground floor and hopped in. Bad idea. As I started going down, this elevator got all wild on me. It stopped on every single floor, even though I hadn't pressed any buttons. It was like it had a mind of its own, or maybe something else was calling the shots. I mean, in my official report, I was all calm, trying to play it cool, like, oh, it's just a malfunction. But deep down, let me tell you, I was freaking out big time, like this was some next level weirdness, and I had no clue what was going on. And that's when things got seriously freaky. I'm doing my rounds, flashlight in hand, heart pounding, and the place is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. But then, out of nowhere, I hear it. A kid's laughter, echoing through the hallways. My flashlight's shaking like crazy as I try to figure out where it's coming from, but there's no one in sight. It's like this ghostly giggle is all around me, and it's totally messing with my head. The hallways, usually just regular hallways, suddenly seem to go on forever. The air gets super heavy, like it's pressing down on me, and I start feeling seriously spooked. The laughter, though, it's not the kind of laugh you'd expect from some happy kid playing around. It's like this eerie, creepy laugh that sends shivers down my spine. And my flashlight? It's shaking so bad that I can barely see straight. I'm trying to find the source of that laugh, but it's impossible. It's like the sound is playing tricks on me, coming from one direction and then another, as if it's messing with my head. The temperature takes a nosedive, and I can see my breath forming these misty clouds in the air. My heart's racing, and I've got a cold sweat going on. Every step I take just makes everything feel more intense, like the whole place is closing in on me, and I'm stuck in some freaky horror movie. I couldn't help but wonder what the heck was going on. It's like there's something watching me, something I can't see, but can definitely feel. And it's like whatever it is, it's loving every second of scaring the pants off of me. Things took a seriously eerie turn one night. I was doing my usual rounds, footsteps echoing down the dimly lit corridors, and that's when I saw her, this young girl in a white dress and long hair. She was racing down the grand staircase, her laughter echoing in the gloom. It was a weird mix of playful, and I gotta admit, kinda sinister. I couldn't just let it slide, you know? So I decided to follow her, see what was up. I finally caught up with her at the elevator, and that's when I asked, "Hey, why are you out so late?" She didn't answer right away, just stood there with her back to me, like she was ignoring me or maybe she couldn't hear me. We got into the elevator, and the atmosphere was so tense you could practically cut it with a knife. I tried to break the ice, make some small talk. "Are you lost?" I asked, my voice wavering a bit. Still, no response. It was like I was invisible to her. As we reached the 4th floor, she made her move. Quick as lightning, she bolted from the elevator and disappeared into room 509. I was left standing there, heart racing, not sure if I should follow her or just hightail it out of there. But I had to know, man. I couldn't just let this mystery girl vanish into thin air. So, I headed back to my post in the lobby, all jittery and paranoid, and I decided to check who the heck lived in room 509. That's when things went from weird to straight up terrifying. I checked the records, and you won't believe it, but room 509 was supposed to be vacant, like nobody had lived there for a month. That sent a chill down my spine, let me tell you. It was like this place was playing tricks on me, and I was stuck in some freaky, ghostly puzzle. But for some unknown reason, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to go back up to room 509. I found myself climbing the grand stairs, the master key clenched in my hand. I turned the lock and opened the door to unit 509. The room was dark. Only the faintest glimmer of light slipped through the curtains. It was empty and cold, like an icy grip had taken hold of it. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw the little girl run inside the bedroom. My heart raced as I rushed to investigate, but there was no one there. Just an unsettling emptiness that seemed to swallow me whole. And then, out of nowhere, the laughter of a child echoed through the room, a spine-tingling sound that made my blood run cold. I didn't waste a second. I bolted from the room, my heart pounding, and ran as fast as I could, leaving behind the chilling echoes of that laughter.
I'm Anne, just your typical college student trying to make things work. So, here's the deal. The dorms at my university are all filled up, and I'm on the hunt for a place to crash. You know how that goes. One gray afternoon, I came across this peculiar building. It was like a mix of old-school Victorian vibes and modern renovations. Quite the combo, right? Curiosity got the better of me, and I pushed open this huge, creaky wooden door. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit, and I half expected to see cobwebs. The wallpaper was all intricate and old school, and the lights flickered in a way that made me think of horror movies. I kind of called out, "Any rooms available?" Dead silence. I thought I was alone until this guy, super skinny and looking like he'd seen some stuff, popped up behind the reception desk. His eyes had this vacant look. "We got one room," he said, in this ghostly whisper voice. "Follow me." So I followed him through these winding hallways, and let me tell you, this place was like a history lesson in architecture. Dusty chandeliers, old-school wallpaper. It was like stepping back in time. Finally, we stopped at this door that looked ancient. The manager pulled out this rusty key and unlocked it with a creepy creak. Inside was this tiny studio apartment. It was a mix of old and, well, ancient. A 4-poster bed sat in one corner, and there was this rickety wooden desk that looked like it belonged to a museum. The window had these thick curtains that hadn't seen daylight in ages. The room was dark, like it sucked in all the light. A draft whispered through the cracks in the walls, and I couldn't shake this chill that settled in my bones. The manager gave me the rundown like, "It's cheap, it's close to the university, and other students are looking for a spot like this." It did seem too good to be true. But with classes looming and time running out, I didn't have many choices. So I sighed ahead and said, "I'll take it." As he handed over the rusty key, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just walked into a mystery waiting to unravel. The past seemed to hang heavy in the air, and I couldn't shake the eerie sense that something not quite right was lurking in the walls of this place. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I'm knocked out in my new, sort of creepy apartment. I'm dead asleep, right? But then, out of nowhere, bang! It sounds like a wrecking ball just hit the upper unit. I bolt up in bed, my heart racing, and my sleep-addled brain trying to process what's happening. I'm half thinking I'm in some kind of horror flick. I mean, what else could it be at this hour? Then it hits me. There's some serious commotion going on upstairs. A woman and a man are going at it, yelling, and I can't make out a word they're saying. It's like they're in their own world of chaos. I'm just lying there listening to this wild argument, feeling totally lost because I can't figure out what they're fighting about. At this point, I'm wide awake, and there's no way I'm getting back to sleep. The whole thing just drags on for what feels like an eternity. I'm checking my phone, staring at the ceiling, and wondering if I should call someone or bang on the ceiling to tell them to chill. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Silence. Like, complete and eerie silence. It's as if the world outside my apartment held its breath. I'm left there, sitting in bed, with my heart still racing, wondering what the heck just happened. Eventually, exhaustion takes over, and I drift back to sleep. But this time, it's not as peaceful. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of something seriously weird going on in that place. The next day, and let me tell you, I'm still not over that weird middle-of-the-night fight from last night. I'm practically sleepwalking as I'm heading off to school. I stumbled out of my unit and bam, it's like the hallway decided to go all dark and spooky on me. I'm just too groggy to think much of it, so I keep trudging along. Sometimes I wonder if this whole place is trying to give me the creeps. So I step into the elevator, right? But this time, when the doors slide open, I'm met with something straight out of a horror movie. There's this woman, standing smack dab in the middle of the elevator, dressed in this old-fashioned long dress, and her hair is like obscuring her face. I'm not sure if it's just sleep deprivation or what, but I can't help but be a little surprised. I mean, who just stands in the middle of an elevator like that, right? But I'm not about to make a scene, so I clear my throat and politely say, "Excuse me," hoping to pass her and get to my floor. But that's when things get seriously strange. As I moved inside, I noticed these marks on her arms, like bruises or something. My heart starts racing, and all of a sudden I remember that epic fight from the night before. I'm just about to ask her if she's okay when the elevator dings and the doors slide open. My phone rang. It was Mom, just checking in on me, asking how I was settling in. So I step out of the elevator, and just like that, the woman vanishes into thin air. I mean, seriously, she's gone. Poof. I look around, but there's no sign of her anywhere. And right then, I can't help but feel this creeping sensation, like there's something way off about this place. The past keeps haunting me, and now there's this mysterious woman who just disappeared into thin air. It's like I'm in some sort of supernatural mystery, and I can't figure out the rules. Another night, and honestly, I've had enough of these upper unit shenanigans. It's the same old story, just a different night. This time, kids are crying, and I can't help but feel this overwhelming frustration. I glance at the clock, and of course, it's 2:30 a.m. I swear, this place has the weirdest schedule ever. I'm trying to study, but the constant fights and crying from upstairs are making it impossible. It's like this messed up soundtrack to my college life, and I'm so over it. Women crying, kids wailing, and a man's voice that just sends chills down my spine. I can't take it anymore. My focus is short and I need a break. So, I decided to head downstairs and hit up the convenience store across the street for a midnight snack. Maybe some chips and chocolate will help me forget about the insanity happening in this place. I lock the door to my unit and venture into the hallway. It's, you guessed it, dark as the night itself. But I'm too determined to satisfy my snack cravings to be spooked now. I make my way to the elevator, press the button, and wait. That's when my heart decides to take a wild detour. Right beside me, there's this little girl, and I mean, it's the middle of the night. She's standing there, and I can't help but ask her where she's going, like a regular human being. But, get this, she doesn't say a word. Just stares straight ahead, like I'm not even there. It's super eerie, and I'm thinking, am I in a horror movie? The elevator doors finally open, and I step in, but the little girl, poof. She's gone. I mean, it's like she vanished into thin air. I quickly step out to see if she's lurking somewhere nearby, but there's no sign of her. It's like she never existed in the first place. So, I'm standing there, feeling bewildered and slightly freaked out when I finally head back to my unit. But you know what? It's finally quiet. I can't hear the fights, the crying, or any of the usual commotion from upstairs. It's like a surreal silence that leaves me wondering what the heck is really going on in this place. It's another one of those long, restless nights, and I'm just about to drift into a cozy dreamland. But then, out of nowhere, a ruckus in the hallway yanks me back to reality. It's like a storm brewing right outside my door. I groggily get out of bed and slowly tiptoe towards the door. My heart's pounding like crazy, and I can feel that something's seriously wrong. I mean, who fights in a hallway in the dead of night? I do the classic peephole maneuver, and what I see sends icy shivers down my spine. There's this woman, her face twisted in fear, and she's running like her life depends on it. Right behind her, there's this man, looking like a monster, and he's got a hold of her hair, yanking her back. The woman's crying, begging him to stop hurting her, and my heart goes out to her. But I'm frozen like I'm watching a horror movie unfold right in front of me. They disappear from my view as they move farther down the hallway, but I can still hear her cries echoing through the walls. It's like a nightmare playing out in real life, and I'm just a helpless bystander. Then, as if the nightmare needed to find a new location, I heard the elevator open. I can't see what's going on, but it's like the feud between them continued in the upper unit. The shouts and screams echo through the building, and I can't unhear any of them. And then, just like that, it all stops. The silence settles over the hallway, and it's more eerie than anything else. I'm left standing there, feeling a mix of fear and helplessness, wondering if this nightmare will ever end, or if it's just going to keep playing out, night after night. After all those nights of being terrorized by the fights and the creepy encounters in that eerie apartment building, I decided enough was enough. I mean, seriously, the place was like a real-life horror show, and I needed out. So the next day, before heading off to school, I made a beeline for the manager's office. I had to complain because it was just too much. The fights were getting worse, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there were kids involved. It was way past creepy. I spilled the beans to the manager, telling him everything. His response? Confusion. He looked at me like I had just told him a ghost story. He drops this bombshell on me, saying that there's no one living in the unit above mine. It's been vacant for ages, not rented out to anyone. I couldn't believe it. All those nights of hearing the fights, the cries, the chaos, and there was supposedly no one up there? It made zero sense. As I went about my day at school, the manager's words kept swirling in my head. Was I losing my mind? Had it all just been some kind of bizarre dream? But deep down, I knew what I'd experienced was real. There was no way I could just brush it off. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from the school saying they've got a vacant room in the dorms. It's like the universe was handing me a lifeline. I didn't even hesitate. I jumped on the opportunity like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. Leaving that creepy building behind was a no-brainer. I didn't look back, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there were mysteries hidden in its dark corners that I'd never understand. All I knew was that I needed to escape, and the dorm room was my ticket out of that never-ending nightmare.